Embrace the sounds of silence if you want to survive. A Quiet Place Part 2 is directed by John Krasinski, who directed A Quiet Place Part 1, a movie I love so much I bought on Blu-ray. I was very excited for this sequel. It was supposed to come out last year, and then the pandemic hit. Damn you, pandemic! It really does suck that it affected so many, people as far as their lives, and some people losing their lives and everything. So it was going to take a while for things to get a little bit more back to, I guess, normal. This is the first movie I've seen in theaters in almost 15 months. The last one I saw in theaters was Bloodshot. So yeah, things could really only go up from there. I reviewed a whole lot of movies at home last year and even this year, and I finally decided to venture out and was like, I loved A Quiet Place Part 1, and Emily Blunt returns. She's John Krasinski's wife. She plays Evelyn. She actually is his wife in real life, by the way. And also Melissa Simmons returns as Reagan, the the girl who is legit deaf and did a phenomenal work in the first one. I absolutely loved her. And also Noah Lupa returns as a son. They have a crying kid. Sweet fucking Christ, does that kid cry a whole lot, as kids are known to do. Also Cillian Murphy is in it, who's had a pretty interesting career. He was Scarecrow in the Batman Christopher Nolan movies. He was also in Sunshine, a pretty underrated sci-fi movie in my personal opinion. Bit weird, but certainly underappreciated. And he's been in a lot of other stuff. And Djimon Hounsou, yes, Mr. Amistad and Gladiator himself. Well, he was in Gladiator, and one of the best parts, and I can't fucking wait to review Gladiator 2, Electric Boogaloo. So I was excited to see this. Now, if you saw my original review of A Quiet Place, it'd be hard to see a new version since I've only done one. I did call it A Quiet Place for The Last of Us, and, right down to the whole John Krasinski looking like the dad from The Last of Us, and the animals, or the creatures rather, basically being the clickers. I mean, seriously, when, their heads expanded and everything, they looked like the fucking clickers. They weren't infected humans, but they basically were the goddamn clickers. But I enjoyed the movie. I thought it played up the whole trope of, not needing to make sound and all that, and I was excited for this. And there are 3 types of sequels. There's a good sequel that builds on the concept of what was... of what made the original, really good, Aliens, Terminator 2, and the like, and stuff like that. There's bad sequels like The Ring 2. We don't talk about The Ring 2. It's really goddamn bad, and other bad sequels. And then there are lazy sequels that do just enough to hook you, and then kind of limp along because now we're a franchise. Unfortunately, I am sad to report that this is a bit of a lazy sequel, and it's sad because I wanted to like it more than I did. I really did. I'm not saying I hated it, but I was left somewhat empty and feeling disappointed because, and I'll get into spoilers here in a little bit, but this one is going to be conflicting. There are some people that didn't care for A Quiet Place, and you're probably going to think this is just more of the same. If you're a fan like me, and I know I'm a fan like me because I am me, I can only be me, there was some disappointment here. The acting was pretty good. But what helped that first movie was the fact we started, with this thing already established that they have to not make sound and stuff like that. Family living in isolation. There are other, smoke stacks or other fires and everything. Dance into the fire. But actually it's because, certain human beings are letting you know, hey, we're isolated, we're here, but obviously we're not going to come get you or try to communicate with you because, oh yeah, these things hunt by sound. And at the end of the first one, and sorry if you haven't seen the first A Quiet Place, don't know what the fuck you're doing here because this is literally a sequel takes place right after. After John Krasinski's character basically just says, hey, I'm going to scream and I'm going to, be like the dad from The Last of Us or be a better version of the dad from The Last of Us. If you get it, you get it. And then the remaining family basically dispatches one of the clickers and then they're going to continue on with their lives. In the beginning, which is a good place to start, we actually start at the beginning, day 1, where all this stuff happens, and we get to see how these creatures, how these clickers, if you will, that didn't fucking work one bit, how they got to this particular area, how they, how they came to be, what happened, how everybody was just going on with their lives like everybody does, and then these creatures attack, and it is bedlam, and it is crazy and everything, and for a movie that was rated PG-13, they did amp up the violence a little bit. The violence was actually not that bad in the first one. But this did a pretty good job of going just far enough to be PG-13, but not going so gratuitous. And that opening was great. You may have seen it in the trailer, Emily Blunt's like driving and everything, and then the bus is suddenly coming right at them because the creature is taking over. I guess bus rates are so bad that these creatures are just like, okay, we need transportation. Let's just take over the bus, people. We don't know how to drive, and we're not very smart, but let's just do this. So, okay, they do that, everything all happens, the family gets reunited, and then smash cut to immediately after the first one, literally minutes after, where, Reagan had, had that, hearing aid invented by her dad, and he had come up with a way where a certain tone would make them all, it'd be like venom with noise and stuff like that, and that would basically be the end of them. They could shoot them because they would get their heads exposed. They're not, like they're, they got sensitive, soft tissue and everything underneath. Be weird to have hard tissue. And they dispatch them. And then the family's picking up the pieces, pick up the pieces. And the basement's flooded. They got to get the crate that had the baby in there and, with an oxygen tank so the baby would be okay. And from there, Evelyn and her kids go along. And through a series of events, they find out that they have to split because Regan has found out a way where maybe she can get to a certain area. She hears a song on a radio station and doesn't believe Cillian Murphy's character basically saying, hey, Emmett, you have to help us. Basically, they knew each other before this whole thing happened. And we're on day 474. So we're only a year and a half into this guy. Well, actually, year and a third. I mean, we're not even a year and a half into it. And basically, Regan decides she's strong enough. She's got her dad's determination. She's going to go out and she's going to take care of this. She's going to get a boat. She's going to go out to this island because she's isolated, that there is a signal out there. Maybe it's people. Maybe there's a radio station. She can find a way to get her earpiece to zap these creatures and maybe turn back the tide against these sinister forces. These forces that came from another world or somewhere. Who the fuck knows? Okay, so that's about as much as I can really do on without spoilers there, because they're, from here I have to get into spoiler territory. I will say that the unfortunate thing about this movie, the first one had life and energy, and it did have a feeling of dread. This one had more of a feeling like it was trying to recycle everything and trying to juice up emotion. And you felt some emotion from the family, but it also felt like it was just very much a sequel that was limping along after that opening, after maybe the first 30 minutes. I'm not saying it was bad. There was good acting, but there were so many scenes of convenience. Like, oh, these particular characters suddenly do something like this, and now they're in this situation. Or, Regan goes off and she does what she does, and then Emmett has to follow her, and, everybody separates and stuff like that. And then we get a whole bunch of stuff going on where, hey, maybe we're hinting to possible other sequels. There could be other people out there, but they aren't worth saving, according to Emmett. And that was said in the trailer. And everything for a good chunk of the movie just feels like it's just a plot device to advance things. It doesn't really feel like a lot of these people are characters. And it's not that the acting's bad. I would actually say the acting is the biggest strength of this movie, because there's only so much you can do with the concept when you started where you did in the first one and then continued on. Like, in the first one, the kid died because he played with a toy rocket and got taken. And then a number of, a bunch of time later, they end up having the other kid and everything, but that haunted them. And with this, it almost feels like everything that they try to do, some of it feels too convenient, some of it feels a bit too much like it just doesn't really work for me. I don't know really how to explain it without getting into spoilers here, but just some of this movie didn't quite work after the opening and after they set some stuff up where they were all going to have to separate because Regan wanted to go out and try to fix this thing because her dad isn't there, and she has her dad's spirit. So that's really where I'm going to get into spoilers right now. So anyway, 3, 2, 1, and go. Spoilers, 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 spoilers. Okay, if you're still here. All right, so yeah, there was a bit of a spoiler there in the in the non-spoilers, but Regan has figures out with her hearing aid she can jam it onto a microphone, and if there's a radio, it'll anger the clickers and stuff like that. And Emmett is obviously tortured because his wife died. She was making too much noise. The clickers were coming. I don't know what else to call them other than the clickers. And they came to this like abandoned warehouse area and stuff like that. And there's reinforced concrete and stuff like that. Of course, these things can easily get in there because they're clickers, so why couldn't they? And while trying to go there, Evelyn and her family, the son gets caught in a bear trap. So, I mean, it didn't snap the foot off. That was pretty brutal. There was some pretty gruesome stuff. There was like, oh, ooh. And also John Krasinski's character is in the beginning of the first movie, so it actually was nice to see him there again. Being the dad from The Last of Us, once again. Something I'm really down on this movie, and the more I think about it, I kind of am, because I was just disappointed. From there, Evelyn says to Emmett, please get my daughter back, because, Regan explains to, her brother, I have to go do this. I have to do this for Dad. I've isolated this. I'm going to go get a boat, and I'm going to do this. And even though the actress legit is deaf, she has been able to communicate and do some speech, but they did put the captions, the subtitles there, and that was good. And she's doing a phenomenal job with this, and I think has a very bright future. And I love Emily Blunt. I'm not even knocking the acting here. But once it gets to where they go and do some, stuff, she goes off on her own. Emmett is sent out there to get her, helps blast away a creature that's in the, the train car that's stranded. And they manage to get to a boat sometime later. Meanwhile, Evelyn has to go out and get more medical supplies at the same place that she went to in the first, or that they went to in the first one. That somehow everything, there's still stuff there. I don't know how there's still stuff there. Like, I mean, if enough people are still around, you would think that stuff would have been raided, or some of that stuff would have gone bad. But whatever, I guess maybe I'm thinking too much into this because it really wasn't that long away. But I don't know. Something about this just wasn't hitting right. Then eventually she gets back there, has a couple oxygen tanks because her baby, they put it in a crate with an oxygen tank, set in with the hose through there so the baby can breathe and not make so much noise. So that's one thing babies do. They tend to make a lot of noise. Meanwhile, Emmett and Regan get to this boat dock. They're about to get to the thing, and then, there are these weird people with red eyes, red bloodshot eyes. They're like the people from Bird Box got taken over. And anytime a movie reminds me of fucking Bird Box, I gotta knock it down a little bit. I'm not saying Bird Box was wholly original, but it was holy shit, this is fucking rotten. I goddamn hate this movie, and I want that movie to die, and it's only a movie. I don't understand how a movie can die. I hate Bird Box. And it was hinting that maybe, there are people that are possessed, like they don't get killed by the creatures, but they were turned by whatever the bright light was and stuff like that. So maybe that's going to be for A Quiet Place Part 3, Revenge of the Shit. Because it's probably going to end up going to shit by this point. And then through, basically being able, her remembering something from a Little League game in the beginning where what's the thing for dive, like at a baseball game, like, this. So he does that to her. Emmett does that, and she dives, and then this creature, comes in because the clickers are just like, well, we got to get in here and do something. And they start doing something, and they start attacking. And meanwhile, back where Evelyn is, there's this creature that, just heard what, the brother did. So he's like, okay, I'm going to come down there because I got to do something because they digitized me. I have no meanings for existence. I'll do this. And he knocks this this metal pipe thing down because everything's falling apart. It's like that Sugar Ray song. And then she uses one of the oxygen tanks to blast the thing and blow it up and everything, even though it doesn't blow it up. And then the sprinkler system is still working, messes with the thing's noise, and then they're able to dispatch that later. So then the creatures show up, and Emmett and Regan are basically saved. They float on a boat, because we all float down here, to this island nation that Djimon Hounsou, I believe that's how it's pronounced, I'm sorry, and a bunch of people are living in paradise. They found out that the creatures can't swim. One of the creatures tried to dive in the water and was like, shit, we never had water on our planet. That's it. And then one of the creatures just sitting on a goddamn boat like, I forgot how to jump, the 10 feet back to the dock and maybe get away from this shit that'll kill me. And then Emmett and Regan are like, okay, we got to do this. Hey, thank you for taking us in. We got to do this. We got this Beyond the Sea song that you keep playing because it's a hint. You got to go beyond the sea. Since you found out they couldn't swim, Djimon Hounsou, who's only called Man on Island, that's literally his name, tells that people kept pushing and shoving when boats were being brought in by the National Guard to take them out, and that was it. Everybody basically died. Lance Archer was correct. And then, meanwhile, we go back to the island nation or not the island nation, but we go back to where Evelyn and her kids are, and they are basically surviving on oxygen, locked in this area, and they're all right. They're getting attacked by a creature because these creatures are just like, fuck it, what else? What other reason do we have to exist? We don't like human beings. We don't know what human beings are, but we know we don't like them. I can identify with that working in retail. Then we get to where basically the boat that the other creature was on somehow manages to float all the way over there. Maybe he was paddling there. Maybe we could have gotten to the lead scene of the thing paddling, roar, 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 instead of stroke, stroke, stroke. And then the boat has arrived, and goddamn it, Emmett's like, wait, we gotta be quiet, be quiet. And the creature starts attacking, taking out people from this community. It kind of actually reminds me of a beach part of Coopville. And if you've been in Washington like I've been, then you know what Coopville is. very isolated, little town. Not lights in a northern town. Got to finish this thing up because this is weird. The creature attacks. Djimon Hounsou puts his kids back in, puts his kid and another kid in there that was saved, and basically they drive off. He's honking the horn, trying to get this thing away, tries to tear off the roof. And then they manage to get to the radio station pretty quickly, but then again, it's a small island. And he gets dispatched because his paycheck cleared, and he's like, okay, goodbye, I'm done. It was like his Deep Rising character, only with less dignity. And then they manage to get the thing jammed to the speaker. They turn off the record, jam the thing to the speaker, and broadcast it out. That, he does that and everything, like Venom. And then they, basically, since it's broadcast through radio, like, they're able to shoot Emily Blunt's character and son, she's holding the kid. Brother decides to shoot the creature. Cool. All right. At the same time that Regan basically smashes the creature with a goddamn thing right through the head, which is pretty cool. And then that's it. Literally, that's where the movie ends. I had a lot of questions. Why were there people that were infected by weird things? Why was this stuff going on? Why were these characters here for no reason? I don't mind having questions and maybe wondering, what's going to happen with part 3. This is more like you really tried to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall, and what stuck was some stuff that worked and some stuff that was shit. And I gave A Quiet Place a B, or a B plus rather. Quiet Place for The Last of Us Part 2 / DLC basically gets a C+. The beginning was good. There was some good acting. A lot of it just felt very hollow. We'll see what Part 3 brings, if they do a Part 3. Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rickland. I'll see you soon.